Greetings friends, and welcome to my guide on the Savage Fist of Alexander. This turn has high DPS checks, requires raid coordination, and has multiple bosses with enrage timers. I will go into each of the mechanics as we make our way through the phases. I'm sure there are many other strategies that work just as well, but these are the ones we use to best fit our playstyle and composition. Alright, let's get started. Upon entering, you will immediately encounter a mini-boss, Faust. This boss must always be killed per lockout. Savage Faust isn't too different than normal. Other than having a higher base damage, the only difference is Faust will periodically gain a stacking buff that increases damage dealt. Starting with adds, every 10 seconds Faust will either summon an add or buff himself throughout the fight. We have the healers stand behind Faust, so when the adds spawn, they are really easy to be picked up by the off tank and allows the off tank to continue DPS on Faust. Faust and all the adds he summons weaves and cleaves in between auto attacks, so never face them toward the group or the other tank. This entire fight is a DPS race. You will have roughly 2 minutes and 40 seconds to kill Faust before he goes ham and casts Pressure Increase. This will completely destroy your party. This mini-boss will be a good test of your group's DPS abilities. Once Faust is no more, slide down and get ready to face the Oppressor. The Oppressor is the true boss of the Savage Fist. The Savage version is very similar to the normal mode, but with a few added mechanics. Phase 1. This is a timed phase and will force transition at around 1 minute and 25 seconds into the fight. In this phase, the boss will do these abilities. Royal Fount. This ability is an instant cast magical cleave hitting for moderate damage, but can be bursty when paired with an auto attack. Gunnery Pod. Instant cast raid-wide damaging ability doing low damage. Photon Spazer. The Oppressor will turn and target a random party member with a huge linear cannon dealing massive damage and knockback. Simply dodge this. Resin Bomb, a casted ability. This targets 4 random people and places an AoE circle underneath them. Simply dodge this. Resin Bomb will leave behind a green puddle inflicting bleeding and slow to anyone who steps in it. Enemies that enter this will also be affected by the slow. Ideally, you want to bait these out to one side or to the edges of the room. Hydrothermal Missile, a casted ability. A random party member will get a red prey-like marker over their head. This ability does high single target physical damage in multiple hits. Emergency Deployment. This ability spawns 2 adds on both sides of the Oppressor. The Alarum that spawn will tether themselves to the first person that hits them or the first person they aggro. They will begin to transfer stacks of mini to their target, and once reaching 6 stacks, the target will become mini. When the Alarum die, they will leave behind a puddle that induces mini or anything that touches it. This phase is pretty simple. Just DPS this guy and bait out the resin bombs into the position that best fits your raid group. Praise will go out and make sure to kill the Alarm in a good spot as well, so the mini puddles aren't in your way. This phase lasts until 1 minute and 25 seconds has passed. Once this time is reached, the Oppressor will spawn a copy of itself to the north of the room, called the Oppressor .5. This will transition you into Phase 2. Phase 2. At the beginning of this phase, take either the boss or the .5 to the opposite side of the room. Either is fine depending on the method in which you tank him. We take the main boss south and leave .5 north. If the two bosses are too close together, they will tether, and after about 4 seconds they will each gain a permanent stack of damage up. Do not let this happen. Make sure the bosses are spread far apart and that the tether is gone before securing your position. In Phase 2, both Oppressors will do all the same abilities from the first phase and gain these abilities. 3,000 Tons Missile summons 4 laser beams around random places of the arena which indicate where 4 very large, slow-falling missiles will land. These missiles will do massive damage and inflict damage down and febrile, which reduces HP recovery via healing magic and actions. Hypercompressed Plasma. Magical mechanic damaging ability dealing massive damage. Must be mitigated. This ability hits super hard, around 25k. Split viruses, use cooldowns and or shielding abilities to live through this attack. In this phase, you'll want to kill the alarm under these missile lasers to drop the puddles underneath them. This will cause the missiles to shrink and not do anything when they hit the ground. Be careful not to get too close to the puddle or the missile because while they are small, they still have a tiny radius from which they can inflict their debuffs upon hitting the ground. You want to split DPS here to equalize damage between both bosses, one melee and one ranged on each. We have our melee pick up the left alarm, while the range pick up the right one. When killing the alarm, be careful to not kill them too soon because right after they spawn, the Oppressors will cast Resin Bomb, and you don't want the green shit underneath the laser. If this happens, it makes it really difficult to position them because they will be slowed in the green AoE. So you'll want to pick up the adds, DPS a little bit while baiting out the Resin Bomb. Attempt to get in position, but only kill the adds if Photon Spazer is not in your way. After Photon Spazer, you are free to kill if you haven't done so already. After the Hypercompressed Plasma, he will do another Photon Spazer, a Gunnery Pod, then a Royal Fount. After this, he will jump into the air. When he becomes untargetable, we stack up in mid for healing and shields. Once in the air, the Oppressors will then cast Resin Bombs on the group. These should be baited towards the edge and never place one right underneath the bosses because it will slow them and make it difficult to separate and position them depending on their jump patterns. Here is how we dodge the jumps. Look for the landing zone. These are the different patterns. I always look for the one next to the corner and go that way, then head the opposite direction. This will take you to the farthest safe zone from the landing point. The next thing I look for is if they are together. If they are together on the north or south, you just head to one side, either is fine, and run in the opposite direction from the landing points. If they are on the sides, just go to the opposite side, then either run north or south. Overall, the dodging is really simple. Just be sure to not run ahead and drop your resin too far in front of your group. Once you have successfully completed the jumps, the fight will repeat itself from the beginning of Phase 2. Repeat this phase just like you did before and enjoy some free loot. Well guys, that's all I got. I hope this guide was helpful and will lead to some sweet first clears. Peace.